Researchers at Texas A&M Corpus Christi say it's likely the COVID-19 pandemic will have an impact on the 2020 election. Dr. Wendy Pollack says she and other researchers base their data off of current COVID-19 fatalities. The team reported older Americans tend to vote more than younger ones, and because of this, the research team says this could reshape U.S. politics. Dr. Pollack also says another factor in this impact is conflicting messages from the beginning of the pandemic.
Traditionally, medical experts would be used to give information to the American public in a medical crisis. But in our current administration, you kind of have messages coming from both political party individuals, the president, president's cabinets, and medical expertise. What you wind up with is two different messages.
Researchers say ultimately these political changes could have a significant impact on policies, including health care, immigration, and the environment.